Hi, heroes. I'm Stan Lee, and that's not your fault. You know, in a lot of shows like this, people start by saying, and now my guest needs no introduction. Well, I'm not sure Todd McFarlane needs an introduction, but I think he certainly deserves one. So let's get into this. Not only is he multi-talented, but there are many facets about Todd that you're going to learn as we move along. For example, he's not only one of the top artist writers in our business, but he's also something of an entrepreneur. He's going into a new business where he's producing his own trading cards, which he'll tell you about later. He owns a comic book store, which is not a bad thing for a guy in the business to do. He's a baseball player. He used to play, and I think still does, with a Pac-10. I'm sure a lot of you know what that means. He explained to me it's 10 teams in the Pacific League. And on top of that, he's one of the most dazzling talents in the comic book business. And now, since I've given him that magnificent build-up, I'm sure that he'll be real nice to me and be an easy guest to interview. And without further ado, because I don't have much ado to spare, here he is, the one and only Todd McFarlane.
Hey, Stan.
Hiya, Todd.
Hey, you sound just like my mom.
Listen, Todd.
Yep.
What I want to know is, before we get to the heavy stuff, you look about 12 years old.
Thank
I know
you.
you're a little older than that. But what about your early years? What about before you started in comics? Because so many people have asked me, hearing I was going to do this video cassette, how did he get into it? What was he like as a kid? How did he learn to draw the way he does in such a short period of time?
Actually, I think that I'm probably different than most of the guys that I admired when I was growing up, in that I didn't start collecting my first comic book till I was 17. So I was probably grade 11 or 12. Most guys seem to, you know, have read comic books since they were 5. I mean, we all had comic books as a kid. It wasn't like going to be an occupation of mine. So at about 17, for some reason, at that point, I was collecting trading cards, baseball cards, living down in Southern California. And one day, all of a sudden, I walked into a store, a corner store, plunked down my $2 and came home with 6 comic books. And because I'm kind of a fanatical kid, within 2 weeks, I was collecting every single comic book that was out on the stands, and it kind of gave me a focus to take my artwork. I'd always been doodling, and just like anybody else, and drawing since I was 5, I can remember, but I had no focus with it. And I think a lot of the kids out there, you know, that's one of the problems that they have. They can't seem to put themselves in a direction. But once I started collecting the books, all of a sudden I said, well, you start to read so many that some of them aren't that good, and you go, I think I could do a little bit better than this, and you start to get a bit cocky, and you're on your way.
So I guess one of the first things you need is some taste. You have to be able to know this stuff is good, this isn't that good, and I'm going to be influenced by the good stuff.
I don't even think it's making that kind of judgment's pretty. I think you got to get cocky is what you got to do. I mean, because you got to think that you're better than a professional at that point. And if you don't, then there's no reason to do your samples. What I try to tell the kids is really, when you're going to do the samples, yeah, don't really look at the good guys all that much, because they break your heart, because they do things that mind boggle you. You know what I mean? So take the guys and try and redraw the stuff from the guys whose stuff you don't admire a lot of, because then it looks like, yeah, I'm better than that guy, I'm better than that guy, because if I'm redrawing Jack Kirby or Neil Adams or John Byrne stuff, I can't do that stuff, and I'm just going to get disappointed.
So then actually what you're saying is the opposite of what I said, that you're better off looking at the guys who aren't that good, because that'll give you more confidence. You know you can do better than they can.
Right, exactly.
Of course, in your case, though, what about when you first started? Certainly when you were 17 or 15 or 14 or 11, you weren't better than these cartoonists then, but you must have known at some point you'd be able to be as good or better.
I think what ended up happening, I mean, the way that I taught myself, and I know I drive some of the older guys a little bit crazy, but you know, they say draw from life and go and look at the world and stuff. I tell the kids the opposite, you know, draw from comic books. And the reason is because the things that make comic books cool, in my opinion, are things like big laser guns, those monsters that are drooling and got big fangs on them, you know, guys that got capes that are 47 feet, like you can't see that in life. So, but those are the kind of things that visually make things entertaining to look at. So I always tell the kids, look at the comic book, but what I would do is I would just take like arms, and I draw arms for like a week till I kind of had it figured out what an arm looked like. Then the next week I try to teach myself how to draw kneecaps, and I just, after about 2.5 months of placing all the pieces together, I kind of had a body. And then after that point I had to like actually start to turn the body and try to do storytelling and go to the next level. So it was kind of a slow process for me.
Well, when you were drawing the arms and the bodies and so forth, where did you get them from? Did you take them from your own arm, or did you look at other drawings of arms, for example?
I mean, there's certain lines that are on comic books that you got to kind of place. I didn't really study muscle magazines, which a lot of guys do. And the reason is because I think that some of the guys that draw perfect can't really put the superheroes into certain poses that make them look dynamic. I mean, Jack Kirby, if he had put all the kneecaps in the right place, couldn't have done those great poses. He needed to be able to warp the bodies around. But from my perspective, no, I watched, the one thing that I watched was teachers' hands. When I went to college, people used to talk and go like this. And the one word advice I had, they said, if you can draw great expressions of faces and great hands, the rest of the body doesn't really need to be there, because you can do a dramatic shot by going, a guy gritting his teeth and going like this. That gives a lot of emotion. So I watch people's hands a lot, and that was about the only thing I was conscious about.
That's interesting, because I always used to feel the hands and the faces were absolutely the most important two elements to get excitement and interest and drama in a panel. And we used to say to the artists years ago that you've got to make your characters look excited. Because if they don't look excited at what's happening in the story, how can you convince the reader that it is an exciting incident if the characters participating look calm? So we always try to make the hands tense and the faces wide-eyed and the mouths open. And sometimes you can get two artists drawing a strip, and this is something you're so great at. Every panel you do looks exciting. But you can take the same story and let one artist, for instance, if somebody is supposed to be frightened, a monster is coming into a room, and you could have the person like this, oh, there's a monster. Or you could draw her or him like this, ah, a monster. Well, which one would you want to read, if you saw those two drawings? And usually you get that excitement with the hands and with the faces. Mm-hmm. But I think the body is kind of important, too. You've got to know what to do with the shoulders.
Yeah, well, the thing is, most superhero guys don't stand like we stand. In fact, they wouldn't sit at the table.
Bite your tongue.
No, wait, they wouldn't sit in a chair like this. They'd sit like this. Of course, they got the big bulging chest, and so everything is melodramatic. That's why I try to teach the kids that show me their portfolios, too, is overdo everything. I mean, like, keep knocking people over the head with the visuals, because, it is fiction, and people want to see something that's not real, I don't think, because otherwise they can read a novel or something like that. So you got to make it, and the scenes that are what we call pedestrian scenes, where John and Joe are talking out of costume, those ones, I always tell a kid, you can still make those look exciting the same way that Alfred Hitchcock used to make them look exciting. Instead of doing the shot straight at my face, you can come up through the glass table, you can do a silhouette of them, you can shoot through the window that maybe's got the pane that's in checkerboards or something. You can do a dramatic down shot. If Aunt May's pouring coffee, that's a pretty bland, stupid panel, but I could make that, I think, somewhat more visual to look at by either doing a close-up of her eye as the smoke or the steam's coming billowing out of the cup of coffee. I could show her reflection in a stainless steel canister that she's pouring. There's a lot of different ways, and I try to get the kids to think of the pedestrian panels a lot more, because then the action comes easy. If you can make somebody pouring coffee look good, then a guy getting blasted through a wall with a laser gun is a piece of cake, I guarantee.
Todd, you're a real comic book natural, because what you say, I think, is so important, especially if anyone watching this has aspirations of being a comic book artist, or even a writer. You've only got so many panels to tell the story, and if you have one dull panel on a page, you're really wasting about 1/6 of the page, and you're so right on, because anything can be made interesting. Somebody walking down the street, you say, what can you do with someone walking down the street? But as you mentioned, if you make it an angle shot looking up at them, maybe through some steam that's coming up from a grating or from a window. Gene Colan once did a panel, I'll never forget, of a fellow opening a door. He had to open the door. And all Gene drew was the hand holding the doorknob, but he did it in a certain perspective and with his light and shading. I mean, it was as interesting a panel as you can get. So it just depends on your point of view. And I suddenly realized this is not Stan Lee giving a lecture, so let's get right back to you. Let me ask you something else.
Okay.
How do you manage to mix your personal life and your professional life? I mean, you've just, I should have mentioned in your introduction, despite and besides all the other things you are, you're also quite a happily married man who is now a new father.
Yep.
And I think we're very lucky in that your wife, Wanda, and your daughter, Cyan, are here with us tonight, and I have a feeling that people watching this would probably like to meet them. Do you think you could talk them into coming up here?
We can do it. If not, then I know Grandma wants to see it too. So.
Here are Todd's lovely wife, Wanda, and his lovely daughter, Cyan. As if by magic, they've appeared. Hi, glad to have you here.
Glad to be here.
Now, let's see. Cyan, first of all, you've been absolutely wonderful about this. You've stayed there and you haven't cried and you've stayed awake, and I know you'd rather take a nap. And I'm not going to keep talking because I know Todd wants to talk a lot about his wife and daughter. Go to it, buddy.
I think that one of the things that some of the people trying to break into comic books have to understand, you got to have a pretty understanding wife, I think. You know, and I hope other guys think that they also have the best wife, but I think I've got the best. She's stood by me for a lot of years. You're asking me about my work schedule. I've been able to, because of my success, been able to back away from it, but for a lot of years I had to put in those. And
those long hours.
Oh, unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know, there's 7 days a week, you know, 80-hour weeks, week in, week out, and literally just come upstairs, get dinner, come downstairs, keep working. I mean, deadline. We've all had deadline problems, but it makes it a little bit easier when you have somebody there that is understanding about what you're doing, that's also encouraging along the way, and knows that hopefully it's not going to be forever, but that it's a means to an end and whatever. So I think that not enough people actually introduce their wives or their girlfriends or family members that if it wasn't, I think, for my wife being there and helping me through a lot of tough times, I probably wouldn't be standing up here today talking to you.
I know exactly what you mean. So. Yeah.
I think it depends on your. I think it depends on your approach to how you're going to break into business. You were very driven, and so you were at it very hard for a very concentrated period of time, but not necessarily the only way you can do it. But it certainly worked out for us.
Yeah, like I said from the beginning, when I start collecting every comic book, I'm psychotic. When I put my nose down, I become obsessive with things.
Well, Wanda, what does it feel like? What does it feel like to be married to a guy who is that obsessive about something? And I might add, that's successful at it. I mean, it's a whole new career. You're in showbiz.
It is, yeah, and it's funny because where we live, people don't pay much attention.
Vancouver, right?
Right, Vancouver Island. People don't really pay much attention. There's the odd kid that's a collector, and they're very excited when they meet him, but it's such a different world when you go to a convention or something like this, but particularly a convention where there's hundreds of kids lined up, sometimes thousands, to see him, and I just look around and go, wow, this is very strange.
It's a good feeling, though.
It is a great feeling.
How does Cyan react to all of this?
Well, this is brand new for her. She's just 6 weeks old today, actually.
I think
and
that's
so,
great.
So
but see, I'm already working on her because she could possibly be like, kids want to know whether there's going to be a Spidey baby. See, and this is why I bought this here, because then at any moment when she senses danger, see, then she could just come in here, the Spidey baby, she's ready
wonderful.
to go, and we're off. And
I wondered why you had her sticking to the wall when I first met her. That's terrific.
Well, I think we're getting hungry, so I think we'll leave you guys to the rest of your interview, but thank you for inviting me.
Hey, thanks
It's been
so
fun.
much for coming and
Okay.
kind of rounding this thing out. And it was great seeing you,
Okay,
Wanda. And
bye-bye.
Cyan, remember now, when we need a spider baby, who knows? Boy, when you realize that most artists need motivation, I'd say, Todd, that you have two of the greatest motivating factors I've ever seen there. You've got a lovely family.
Thank you,
I
thank you.
congratulate you. Now, you mentioned Vancouver. You live in Vancouver, or more accurately, Vancouver Island,
Right,
as
right.
you've told me a moment ago.
Yep.
And I was just wondering, what's it like? That's pretty far from New York, where most of the comic publishers are.
Yep.
What's it like to be working so far away? Is it more difficult or easier because nobody's bothering you, or what?
For me, I mean, I've always worked out of a small town ever since I broke in. So for me, it's not really a change. I mean, I grew up in a few big cities, but since I broke into comic books, I've been living in small towns. You know, my attitude is, I know a lot of guys live in New York, and with Federal Express and those kind of courier services now, you can live literally any place on the planet, not just in North America. I feel that if you don't live near the hub, and they know you're going to come in every Tuesday at 12 o'clock, that if they go out of their way to FedEx you something or get on a phone call and make a long-distance phone call, they probably want you a little bit more. Because a guy who's coming in every day at noon, then they go, well, let's phone Todd or Bill or George or Fred to do this job. And if they all say no, then the guy who walks in at noon, we know he's coming in at noon. So he's our fifth choice. So I always figured that if you move away and they still kind of hunt you down, then that tells you something about, like, you know, where you're standing and how much in demand you are amongst some of the other things.
And you can keep testing it. You can keep moving further and further to make sure. If ever you have any feeling of insecurity.
That was it. People go, why do you live on Vancouver Island? And because I live up in Canada off the West Coast, which is about as far away from New York as I can get. And to go any further, I'd have to go to Japan because that's the next piece of land. But
I thought you were going to say that's the next plan I have.
Yeah, well, maybe. But I don't know. Like I said, people, for me, I've always worked in isolation, so I always figured that by working in isolation, I kind of sink and swim on my own. I'm not influenced by a lot of things that are in LA or New York, and I don't hear a lot of the styles and the gossip and the things that are happening, so I just kind of have to, like, make it up myself. Some of it works, some of it doesn't, but so far it hasn't really come back to haunt me that I'm just going, well, I haven't seen anybody else's stuff because I haven't been up to the office. So, well, this would be cool if I did it this way. So, in some respects, I think it's made me think a lot more than if I had more creative input around me.
Every artist works differently, and every artist has a different opinion and a different philosophy about his work. Some of them like to be right in the hub. You're better off you feel further away. But what it really comes down to is the basic talent itself. And it's almost like when you build a better mousetrap, they say the world will beat a path to your door. I think if you've got the stuff, whether you're in Vancouver or Mars or right in the heart of New York, somehow you'll be discovered, it'll come out, and then you just work the way you're the happiest. But everybody is going to want you when you're really good. I mean, look at me. I could have had my choice of anybody up here. And I got to tell you one thing. It is so great working in the comic book business because so many of the guys are like a Todd McFarlane, where you don't feel you're working. I mean, it's fun. You're just with friends and people you admire and respect. And speaking of that, you had mentioned to me earlier before we started that John Romita had visited you in Vancouver. And Romita is John is one of my absolute all-time favorite people. Tell us a little about it.
John Romita's, maybe some of the people don't know, did a long body of work on Spider-Man with yourself. When I came into the office to pick up a new book and ended up getting offered a Spider-Man book.
He's the art director at Marvel.
Right,
now.
He's now the art director, right? And he had laid down what I consider the definitive Spider-Man. I mean, Ditko had started it and did it the first...
Steve Ditko, the guy who started it.
Right, Steve Ditko had done the artwork on the first 40 issues with you and kind of laid down kind of a quirky style, but it was actually John Romita who does the Spider-Man that I tell people is on pajamas and is on the towels and is on the bubblegum wrappers. You know, that definitive look. Well, my attitude has always been, well, if you're going to do something, you got to get noticed. I don't care what it is. Even if it's bad notice, that's better than no notice at all. So they kind of wanted me to draw like John Romita, and I didn't want to do it because it's like becoming a painter and saying, well, I'm going to do like Michelangelo or Norman Rockwell. The best you can hope for is to be almost as good as Norman Rockwell. That's the best you can hope for. So I go, the only thing I can be is either almost as good as John Romita, or I can go out there and make a career for myself. Now, when you do those kind of things, you don't state those facts. It ends up looking like you're bucking the system somewhat, because it's like, oh my gosh, well, why is he changing this and this and this and this when we've done it a certain way? But it was more out of a respect to John, because I just go, I can't add nothing to his stuff. I couldn't add. So what I did is I go, well, I try to pick the best of what Steve Ditko did, which was that quirky, kind of funky style. And then I took what I thought John Romita brought to it, which was the pretty people, the great storytelling. I mean, everything was perfect on John's stuff. Kind of meld the two of them together and mix in like a 90s flair with it and kind of spit it back out on the page. And it seemed to work. I mean, I made a couple of cosmetic changes with the eyes and with hairdos.
You made the eye space is about 10 times bigger, the whites of the eyes.
But again, I mean, those are kind of things that when you get on a book, you have to kind of get into it and go, well, Spider-Man. I always felt that some of the guys at a certain point always made it Spider-Man, emphasis on man. And I know he's actually a man and stuff, but my attitude is quite the opposite. Once he throws on the costume, he doesn't have to be able to, his joints can bend, and you know what I mean? He doesn't. I put him in impossible
played up
positions.
the spider part.
Right, so I do Spider-Man, and I put him in the positions that people go, a human being can't get into it. And I go, you're right, a human being can't, but it looks cool, you know? I mean, you turn the page, and it's like, wow, look at him hyper-extended here and triple-jointed there, and they got webbing all over the place. And it's not realistic, but it's a heck of a comic book shot.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more.
Let me tell you, you said something that I think borders on being profound when you were mentioning that if you copy somebody else or try to work in someone else's style, the most you'll ever be is a good imitation or a good copy. And especially if a guy has his own style down so perfectly that you can't improve on it, all you can do is be similar or change it. But if you change it, if you do something that's your own individualistic style, that's really the way to succeed or to reach the top. And I really think that goes in every field. If you're an actor, you won't get anywhere by imitating a Robert De Niro or a Marlon Brando. You've got to get your own style and your own thing.
Right, well, I mean, something like okay, in John Romita, I went up there, and a couple of times he sat me down, and I always tell people, if you go up to Marvel or you go up to DC comic books, to talk to people like Dick Giordano and to John Romita, who've been around for years, and they don't tell you to draw. I rarely tell a kid to draw better, because if it was that simple, I'd walk into the office and they go draw like Michelangelo, Todd. And so I can't draw like Michelangelo, so I'm not going to tell a kid to go out there and draw better. What I can give them is the same advice that Dick Giordano and John Romita gave me, which is the technical side of it. This is how you do establishing shots. This is how you move characters in and out. This is how you do this. Maybe be on the lookout for these 5 points, and all of a sudden, when I walk out of there, I'm now aware, the next time I do that page, I'm now aware of 5 new things. If nobody ever tells you about it, you're not aware of it. So the more things that you can make people aware of, the better. Now, if they say the introduction is show the establishing shot of the outside of a house, that can be done 1,000 ways. A guy maybe who doesn't have quite that much talent or is young and whatever, he might just do a nice standard bland shot, but somebody else might shoot it through, let's say, a bunch of trees. There might even be a spider web in the trees, and then you can see the silhouette of the shack through. I mean, and I'm just going from more, you know, a down shot in between, like birds fluttering around or whatever it is.
Well, as you were mentioning before, it's a case of taking something and being able to make it interesting.
Right.
And it depends on how you present it. And I think, again, that's one of the differences between a really top comic book artist and just a good artist. You know, there's an artist named Alex Raymond. You probably know his work. He used to do Flash Gordon, and he was wonderful. But then he did Secret Agent X9, I think, and he did Rip Kirby newspaper strips. They were the most beautifully drawn strips you could ever find anywhere. And he was an artist. All the artists used to use him for reference if they wanted to know the correct way to draw a hand or a figure or a smile or anything. But his work never, when he did Rip Kirby and Secret Agent X9, I think he did another, I've forgotten, it didn't really catch the fans. It didn't meet with their approval. Nobody got excited about it. It was so perfect and photographic and well drawn, but it had no excitement and no quality, which he did have when he did Flash Gordon.
Right. Well, even like Bern Hogarth, who did Tarzan, did the perfect Tarzan, and Tarzan was a beautiful. There's a lot of guys out there that you got to find your niche.
Perfect anatomy, and they do everything perfectly, but there's no excitement.
Yeah, and superhero comic books, like I said before, I think superhero comic books are over-exaggeration, melodramatic. Everything has got to be the perfect stuff. Only works on the odd occasion, and otherwise everything else has got to be pompous and a lot of glitz and whatever. Now it's up to the writer to throw interesting stories in there, make the characters interesting, but while you're making Aunt May or whoever interesting while she's pouring coffee, I don't care really what you're putting in verbally. All I know is that you got to bring across these 4 points of information so that the comic book will move. But I'm just not going to show you a headshot of her talking while you're making that information. I've got to make it visually interesting, like you're saying, whether it's a close-up of her pouring the coffee and her reflections in there, you can give me the information, but I still have to make it look visually. As a matter of fact, we could be doing a voiceover on it. Somebody might be talking about their past life, and I could be doing something completely different.
But you know, it's all part of your personality. Now, take you right now. You're sitting here and you're talking about whatever you're talking about. I've been paying no attention, so I don't know what it is. But you're doing it with expression, you're doing it with emotion, and you're actually doing it with a little bit of excitement. Now, I could be sitting here with some other guy who'd be saying, yes, well, I wake up early in the morning and I go to my board and I do. And after 2 minutes, the audience would be asleep or they'd get their money back from the tape. Now, this tape, I guarantee, people are going to save it and it'll increase in value and it'll end up in the Smithsonian. But what I mean is, it depends really on something inside of somebody, how much personality they have. And to me, it's all show business. Everything is entertainment, whether it's comic books or writing novels or being an actor or being a screenwriter or whatever it is. You've got to find a way to make it exciting, and I think you are one of the top people who have that ability to do it. And I was just wondering, how would you, well, I think you have explained it in a sense. Even if you take somebody pouring a cup of coffee, you'll find a way to make it exciting by the reflection of the cup or by the angle or the perspective, because you can't see it in a dull way. You know it's got to be exciting.
Right, well, the one little story that I tell the kids that they seem to like is, and I usually do this when I'm at a convention or something, I got the whole crowd there, is my whole essence of what comic books is I could take a character like Thor, and I could make a poster of him picking his nose, and the kids would buy it. Now, I usually get like a little bit
I'd
of
say it would be a collector's item.
Yeah, well, and they laugh, and they go, there's no way. I mean, he's picking his nose, there's no way you can do it. And the way you can do it is by doing all the things that make comic book interesting. Now, when I draw Thor, Thor does not stand there like you and I. Thor stands there, his legs would be bow-legged, his chest would be barreled out. In the one hand, he's got his hammer. He'd be holding his hammer, again, with a tight, clenched fist, so that his veins were rippling through his arm right here. I'd give him wings on his helmet that were fluttering in the wind, twisting and turning. He's got long hair like a girl. It would be coming over his face, blowing out
The
here.
wind has to be blowing.
Oh, the wind's got to be blowing.
And that cape has to be blowing.
And the cape would be all over the place. The hair would be all over the place. I'd have dust billowing up at his feet. And hidden in all that, he'd be sitting there with his left hand, getting that little booger there. And you want to know what? You wouldn't even know that he was picking his nose. So the point is, if I can make a guy picking his nose exciting, then I can make him slugging somebody easily exciting. So,
It's a great story.
And those are the things that the kids out there that are trying to aspire into being artists have got to look at. They've got to make everything exciting, 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 and then people go, wow, 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 and hope that you get tagged up with a writer that also is going to make it so that it's a product that's not just glitzy artwork, it's also going to be a good read on top of it.
You know, I want to tell you, it's just my luck. I got a show like this, and I have to get a fella who won't say anything. It's like pulling teeth, dragging the words out of him, and I don't know how we're going to handle it. But look, you were talking about drawing, and we must have a lot of people watching this cassette right now and saying, all this talk, 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 why can't we see Todd draw something? Yeah. How does the guy draw? What does he look like? And I think it would be great. Now, we haven't practiced or rehearsed this. I have no idea how we're going to do it. Okay. But is there any way that we can get the camera on and get a piece of paper and something for you and actually let everybody see you do a drawing? Can we do that? Let's try it, okay? You want to get over to the other board?
Yep.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay, Todd, why don't we come over here and let you do your thing?
My thing. Okay, one of the first things that I try to tell kids to do, this would just be the Todd McFarlane, how to do comic books, and then I'll get into some of the technical things. The one thing is that if they say we got, let's say, Spider-Man swinging over the city, I've seen 100 times, now this isn't going to be that complicated, but I've seen 100 times done before. Here, we'll make Spider-Man here. I'll get it a little more fine once. But let's just say here's the body here with the little spider on it. Here's the groin area. But then what they do is they put like a leg here, and they bend the leg here. Okay, with a fine bend or whatever. And then he's holding the webbing up in here, and the other one maybe he's holding the webbing up in here, and he's got some nice little webbing going here. Now, the one thing I try to tell people is that we're drawn on 2 dimensions, and we've got to give the illusion of 3 dimensions. And I think that a lot of kids the artists that they like the best, they probably don't even really know why they like them other than they draw cool capes and stuff. But one of the things is the good artists can usually take a figure like this and run the camera all around it and move it all over. The reason I don't like this, and it's good for the beginner who's trying to learn to put all the anatomy, is this is Spider-Man swinging over the city. I can get a sandwich board, 2 big pieces of plywood, and I can put one in front of him and one in back of him, and it wouldn't bug him. You know what I mean? I could put a big rubber band and he could still swing because there's no foreshortening, there's nothing else there. So one of the things that I like to get the kids to think about is to give as many planes as possible, since this is only two-dimensional right here, we've got to make it 3-dimensional. So one of the things that I try to get the kids to think about is if you're going to have somebody slugging somebody or swinging or whatever, but the first thing we'll do, let's say if I was going to draw back, here would be the collarbone, the top of the collarbone. This would be the back up in here, like this. Now, because, let's say the Spidey emblem is here or whatever, we want to make the head off-center, because if it's on-center, when everything looks polite, then the picture looks way too polite. So if we can get a guy's head off the center of his body right up in here, then we've given the illusion now that his head is in front of this shoulder up in here. Now, if we're going to throw a foot, let's say we're going to throw a foot up in here, we'll put one, let's say we'll make a foot right here, and since we got to have the foot here, well, the only way we can get it back to his butt back here is if we bring it back up in here, and then his leg is going to go back down in here. We'd make his arm, let's say, come here, and as a matter of fact, let's even cut it in front of his face, and then kink his wrist here, and then kink all the fingers even. I mean, the fingers are like 3 or 4 planes in and of themselves. So in other words,
they don't teach kinking in school at the moment.
I know they don't, but the point that I'm trying to get at with kids, okay, then we'd have, let's say, a leg foreshortened back here, and here would be his foot, and then we'd have, let's say, the other arm holding some webbing back in here. Now, the point I'm trying to make, and I know this is rough for the kids, I can clean up a little bit later, is that if I put a hand in front of a face, I've given the illusion that there's this plane,
there's
but
depth.
there's depth in that, that his face is back here. Now, one arm's going this way, one arm's going this way. I've given 2 planes. Kink the wrist. I've given 3, and I can get another 3 on the fingers and another 3 on this finger. I can give you 15 planes if I want to turn it a 45-degree angle right here. If I put the head off center and I put an arm back in here, I've got to hide part of the arm. So by shoving a hand directly at the camera that's real big and one back, or twisting the body, you've now given the illusion that this guy's warping all over the place. It becomes a tough thing, and part of it is I get paid to draw 10 hours a day, so, you know, I mean, you get better and better and better. If you look at some of my early stuff, I wasn't able to do that. But one of the gimmicks that I try to tell kids is to literally just take two pieces of lines, or 2 drawings of lines, whatever. Okay, we'll go one here and we'll go one here, and squeeze a body in there, because if you can squeeze a body in there, then you can probably twist them at any way. So now I've got 2 lines here. I mean, even now I'm going to maybe put myself in a bad spot. But what I'll do here is we'll make this his kneecap right in here.
You'll need a lot of kinking for this one.
Oh, yeah, lots of kinking and there's lots of foreshortening. So then I can come down in here. I'll have his foot up in here. This other foot can come, this would be here. I'll maybe make his other foot hidden back in here. I'll have his body twisted over this way with one of his arms coming up over here, and then I draw his head up and over here. Here's a big eyeball, cool.
Oh, I get it now.
And
That's
then I have
great.
maybe one of his arms up in here hidden. If he's got a belt, make the belt running off around his waist. If he's got a rope, make it going. If he's got a cape, even better. I mean, a cape's the easiest way to give action to something that's not happening. I can make a Batman or Superman, again, standing there doing nothing, but the cape's rippling all over.
You've got to have that wind blowing the cape.
So there's an
around.
illusion that actually he's standing there in the wind. So there's some dimension even with the wind and stuff like that. What I do, because the character I've been drawing, Spider-Man, doesn't have a cape, and I love guys with cape because that's the easiest gimmick. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to know anatomy, because what you do is you kind of put the cape over the leg. That's why Batman's easy to kind of draw, because you just cover the body through a couple
Anything
hands.
you're not good at drawing, you cover
you
with
hide,
the cape.
You hide it. Oh, yeah, yeah. So from the very beginning. But because he doesn't have a cape, what all I can do is do, let's say, a spider web. So if I'm going to do a spider web, I'm not just going to have this nice, pretty spider web. I'm going to have the spider web come here, hidden behind the leg, twisted upon itself, just like a rope, coming back up in here, and then maybe even wrapping back up and around him up in here. So now, even the illusion I've given of depth with the spider web helps to all the different ways that I've twisted and I've contorted the body. Another thing is that sometimes people, like you're saying, get too tied down with like the realism of what makes a comic book and stuff. Some people kind of, I get a lot of kids, as a matter of fact, and I've been able to, I guess, baffle them with my BS, and they call it a style now. Thank you, kids. But they go, wow, you put in so much detail. You do this, you do that. My detail doesn't amount to anything. It's not anything. And I always tell people, I don't care if you can draw a good building or a good car. You got to draw Superman first. So I've yet to have a kid run up to me going, Toddy, you draw the coolest 57 Buicks I've ever seen. No. They go, wow, that was a cool Spider-Man. That was a cool Superman. That was a cool rutabaga guy. And if you can draw a good Buick 57 behind them and a good building and a good tree, all the better. But I've seen guys that can only draw good superheroes and can't draw a very good Buick 57 and they're still great artists.
Let me ask you about the webbing. Aren't you the first guy to make a work of art out of the webbing? I mean, to start making the webbing look as if it was three-dimensional?
I believe in giving credit where credit's due. I pulled the idea when I was collecting comic book. There was an obscure shot that was done years ago. They did a portfolio shot. An artist by the name of Michael Golden did a shot, and there was this one panel, and it's funny as it was, I saw that when I was maybe 18, and I broke into comic books when I was 24, that I saw that shot, and I go, if I ever break into comic books, and if I ever work for Marvel, and if I ever draw Spider-Man, I'm going to remember that.
Really? I didn't know
and
that.
by fluke, I ended up getting to draw Spider-Man. So again, I never forgot that. I got to remember like an elephant on a lot of things. So I pulled it out. Now, Michael Golden did the first version of it. The only thing that I can take credit for is that I popularized it. You know, I did it so much. I call it spaghetti webbing because Tom DeFalco, the editor of Marvel Comics, that's what he dubbed it one day when he didn't really like it. And he goes, I don't like those spaghetti webbing, so I'm going. So now I curse him by calling it spaghetti webbing and getting the kids to call it spaghetti webbing just to bug Tommy sometimes. But the reason I did what I did with it was that the old...
Why don't you just do a little of the webbing, because there may be some people watching that haven't seen it.
Okay.
They wonder what we're talking about.
The old way they used to make it, if this was Spider-Man's hand here, and here's his finger, and here's his finger, and here's his thumb, and he's kind of squirting it out. The way they used to do it was just lines like this,
right.
And then they used to kind of put X's in it. And it worked for years and years and years, but the only thing about this is if I try to shoot that towards the camera, again, with the plane, all you get is bigger X's, you know, and I couldn't use it. So I go, oh, I got to come up with a way, and I remember the way that Michael Golden did it, that I can actually shoot it towards the camera and it doesn't lose what it's supposed to be. Now, I'm kind of psychotic, again, with the way that I do the webbing. If you actually look at one of my drawings, it's continued. There's one strand that literally continues from beginning to end. Most people probably don't follow it, but that's how come it's laborious. And what I would do is I'd come in here and I'd give it about 2 or 3 strands, and then I come in there with one single strand here and I'd wrap it again. By wrapping it in and out, I give illusion even to something as stupid and as trivial as the webbing. Then maybe I'd come in here and I'd maybe give it 2 or 3 ropes. And whenever you wrap something, it doesn't necessarily mean they're all up. I can give one down, one big, one small. I continue the webbing in between here, bring it down here again, and then bring this back around up like this, and so on and so on. Sometimes it takes me 2 hours just to do the webbing in one page. And I hate myself that I started doing this because I can't go back now, because if I don't, then the kids are going to say, you're getting lazy, you're getting lazy. But in a lot of terms, I think it's good, and one of the things I try to shy kids away from too is I go, I can draw 2 books, I could draw 3, I'm fast. I believe you should do 1 dynamite book instead of 3 average books, because in the long run it's going to pay off for you.
Couldn't agree with you more.
And what ends up happening is people sometimes water themselves down, and so could I draw this a faster way? You darn right. So I could cross the lines. I could do this. I didn't even have to draw this. This is a heck of a lot faster, X. But I figured if I did something that was a little bit different, again, my career was budding. I have to let people notice me so that I get another job, is if I labor over this today, down the line, I think it will pay dividends down the line. A lot of people seem to be short-sighted on a lot of things. So
how does it feel to know that someday in the future they'll talk of you as the man who popularized 3-dimensional perspective webbing? I mean, boy, that's a distinctive trait. Nobody else will have anything like that.
Well, I guess the one thing that would be nice about it is I wanted to do a body of work on Spider-Man, and I felt that Steve Ditko, who we were talking about earlier, and John Romita, both were on the books long enough that they did a body of work, that it would be nice, if nothing else, that 25 years from now, when they throw out 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 names on Spider-Man, on the artistic side of it, that maybe my name might also be in there because I added something to that character. You know what I mean?
Well, you
that maybe
certainly
something
did.
that maybe something will be there that somebody can come along. On the downside, I hate to say it, Stan, on the downside is because it becomes so popular, a lot of the people following now in the Spider-Man steps where they wanted me to draw like John Romita, and I said no, again, out of respect. If I was younger, I probably would have done it. But again, I was at that cocky stage going, no, I want to do it my way or the highway. That kids are now starting to come in there and starting to draw it their own way, and I'd like the costume kids, just because Todd did something popular or whoever else, do it your own way, because you might do something that might be 10 times more popular that nobody's thought of yet. And if you just keep emulating what's been down, you're never going to come up with that one that we go, oh, why didn't I think of that first?
I think that's probably the most important thing that we've been saying and you've been repeating during this particular show, and that is to do it their own way, whatever they do. Do it the best they can in their own style, because when you copy someone else, the best that you can be is a good copy.
Now, I'll go over a couple of the techniques that some of the kids
Great.
can get out of some of their drawings. I've got a few pages here that I can show.
Excuse me, I just thought, can you imagine someone saying, yeah, so this is this guy Todd McFarlane, that great artist, this is what he draws, and wondering.
Those are those Pictionary drawings, you know what I mean? You got to be in and out of there in 10 seconds. One of the things that I want to show to kids is, as long as you give a good establishing shot first, you can buffalo your way through any other page. So, in other words, if I'm going to have a guy flying through the air, there he is flying through the air, and he's looking really majestic, dun, 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 and he's flying here again in perspective, kids, let's not do it, and he's zipping 100 miles an hour, wang, wang, wang. I don't know that he's flying in the bathroom or where he's flying. The easiest thing I tell kids, if he's flying, let people have no doubt where the person is. Easiest thing to do, zip, 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 zip. We got clouds. Instantly puts them in the air. Better yet, throw a bird in there. And as a matter of fact, kids, don't throw the bird here. Throw a couple of small ones here, and then maybe throw a big one that might actually cut in front of the guy here. So then again, you've given the plane that there's depth. Even with the birds, there's depth there. Do your buildings here, and I always say do sliver background. There's 1,000 ways to do it. All you got to do is throw a little bit of a sliver of a building here, a couple windows, and now, I hate to say it, but there's no doubt, I don't care how blind you are, that this guy is not in the air. You got clouds, birds, and buildings. Well, of course the guy's up in the air. Once you ground him, then you've also got to do the same thing. You've got to ground him by showing something. Maybe the tree is behind him that's taller than him. Maybe the building is there, so a window's on top, and maybe a car is parked in front of him.
The chewing gum wrapper on the sidewalk.
Yeah, anything that does it. Also, the other thing, too, is when you're moving people in and out of, like a room, you want to move them in and out of a room in such a way that there's no, my first panel should be, if I'm going to show them, here's my first panel. Let's divide this in half. My first panel is there's 6 or 7 people talking in the living room. First thing is, well, what living room? Well, of course, we got to have the house here. So here's the house. And I know this is breaking your heart, kids, that this isn't really detailed, but we got a time thing here. I've got an establishing shot with the house. I next go into, okay, I'll do a little bit of a down shot. I'll do a down shot here of some of the furniture and some of the TV or whatever's there, and then I'll establish the people standing, maybe one standing here and a couple are sitting and whatever else. If somebody comes in or out of that room, you've got to show them. So, and you don't have to show them by literally the guy's turning the knob, walking in the door. If this person right here is pouring coffee, you can easily do it by, here's the person still pouring the coffee with the big smile on their face. Hi, how are you? Still pouring the coffee. Here's the coffee mug here. Still pouring it. Here's the billowing smoke. Looks really cool. Kids like it. And over the shoulder is the door, and you see the person walking in right in here. So it doesn't have to be so blatant that the guy's walking in. And that can be done if somebody says, excuse me, I got to go check something, that they can walk out. But you still have this person still talking. They've given all the information, because this is where the writer's going to write up in here. But you still have moved the action so this guy is left, even if it was behind their back.
And by showing him pouring the coffee and establishing that he's pouring coffee there, you've given a continuity to it, so it doesn't look as if it's just broken continuity. And one thing that you've done without thinking, because it comes instinctively to you, you've put this small, even though this is small, you've put it right in the center of the panel in a place where the eye will go to it. You kept space around it. You got a curved line there. Everything in this panel, which you probably weren't even thinking of, the balloon here, the curved line here, this little bit of detail here, is focusing the eye on this small thing so you can't miss it, small as it is.
Yeah, okay.
All
Whatever.
right.
It seems to work. It seems to work. I mean, now...
But you've got a natural sense of layout, is what I'm trying to say, because the layout is so important. And very often a fellow will draw something small, and you lose it in the panel because it's small. But if it's laid out correctly, no matter how small it is, you can make it stand out. And as I say, you've done this automatically.
See, one of the other things I try to get kids to is no matter what the page is, there should be one impact panel. Now, maybe it's sometimes impossible to do, but that impact panel could be, like I said, if it's the person pouring the coffee, maybe I'd make the panel go from head to toe all the way up, and then I would have that dark eye, because they might have just said something like, you know, Joni's missing or something like that. I've got the deep eye here, do a nice reflection in there, do the big close-up, and then, like I said, I can do whatever it is. If they're smoking, I'll cut some of the smoke in and out of the panel. I might even have it actually break the borders of the panel. But even though they're saying, oh my gosh, Joni's missing, which is the writer's, you know, job to kind of get some of the interest in, that big riveting eyeball, you're going, oh, well, I mean, it must be something intense that they're saying at that point. If they got a scorn on their face, if they're going to laugh, really make them laugh. Let them know that they're not having a conversation. Some things they're going to say is going to be, you know, I'm concerned about this, but the next panel they can go, you're concerned about that. Well, you're always worried about that, you little Willie. And they could be saying something so they can even, you know, go from being kind of concerned to a kind of a joke within one panel, even though you're still bringing across all the information across that you're trying to get. Now, like I said, once you get to the action stuff, kids, good night. When you get to the action stuff, I've got a couple finished products here that might be a little more that the kids can see what's happening here.
Oh, that's great.
Spider-Man here, forget what the dialogue says for the moment. I know he's not saying pass the tea and crumpet, though. You know, he's hunched over. His hand, as you can see, they're taut right here. And if I could show the veins in the hand, I would. This one's there. He's got that big bow-legged spread eagle that the superheroes do. And it's like, you can tell that he's not really in a good mood, whatever it is.
It's a tense situation.
Yeah, that he's there. And so when I'm saying, now, what's in the background? Who knows, you know? I do this artsy-fartsy stuff. Kids call it style, thank you again. And all of a sudden it fills up the page and the kids go, wow, look at all the detail, look at all the detail. You do a little bit of silhouette, wow, look at all the detail. I do a lot of this line work, a lot of cross-hatching or something like that. Again, here's a body. Is he going to hold them up? Yeah, he's not holding them up right here, as you can see. He's holding them up straight over his head. I mean, you're going to pick a guy up, pick him up. Hide the anatomy with the cape, cool, he's out of there. Spider-Man shoots some webbing onto the back, so I've got to indicate that there's the webbing being attached to the flaming guy's head. So here's how you can tell it's the guy with the flame.
And here's that one strand of webbing you were talking about that goes all the way through.
It's a pain in the rear. Right? And then when he pulls him off and says back off, he's pulling him off like 100 miles an hour. Here's little Spider-Man here. He's ripping him off. You know, he's not saying get out of the way like you and I would do. They're ripping them off. And again, those are my personal opinion on how to do superhero comic books only.
It's been wonderful having you here. I have to relent to do that. And I think that everybody watching this cassette, and I'm hoping there will be millions of them, now realize why we call the series Visits with the Comic Book Greats, because you certainly are one of them, and it's been a pleasure being here with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Right. Hi, heroes. I'm Stan Lee, but hold the applause. Listen, we have a real treat for you this time. I've got Rob Liefeld, and I don't seem to recall your name. Todd McFarlane, yes, we've met before.
Yes, sir.
Two of the best artists, writers in this business. And we have the rare opportunity of having them together, and we're going to do something that's never been done before. At least it's never been done before all these cameras. I'm going to throw, and I promise you, we haven't rehearsed this, I'm going to throw a name at them, and they're going to create a character based on what I tell them, and you better make it good. Okay, now I've got this name. I've been wanting to do a movie with this title. I never thought of it as the name of a character, but it occurs to me it's the kind of name I think you guys could play with. And the name is Overkill.
Oh,
now, I'm hitting you with that. He's obviously got to be the roughest, toughest, meanest hero, if you will, ever done before. So you've got about 20 minutes. Give it your best. And be careful, because I'm watching every move.
Okay, what we'll do is we're going to try to do a collaboration. We'll be adding back and forth to it. And what we'll do is we'll try to explain our thinking on how we're coming across and why we're doing Overkill the way it is.
You can think and draw at the same time?
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
We've even talked. So what we'll do is Rob will start doing the outline, and because we're going to do this and put it in the comic book, I'll be working on the logo. So by the time he's got the outline, I'll be done with the logo, and then we'll start going from there.
For the uninitiated,
Okay.
of course, the logo is the lettering of the masthead. Now, here we go.
Okay, now I figure...
Rob and Todd.
Okay, now I figure if we're going to have Overkill, then the O in the Overkill, we'll make it as a gun sight.
Oh, cool idea.
So we'll have the gun sight in here, and we'll have the gun sight come up in here, and then after that I can do the rest of it Overkill. I'll probably break it up into 2 words. I'll make it over, and then I'll probably maybe slant the word kill on there, so that it kind of breaks it up and it's not one long read. Rob, are we going to make them thick, or are we going to make
We
them...
have the
well, this guy is
obligatory
thick.
strong heroic character
Okay.
over there, right?
He's got to be a guy. He's got to be huge.
Thick neck, broad
Thick,
shoulders.
thickest neck.
Are you going to
thickest
give him the
shoulders.
usual shoulder pads?
I don't know. I'm not real sure yet. What do you think, Todd?
I don't know. A Liefeld character without shoulder pads is almost naked.
I think if we got to have guns, we got to have...
Armor.
Armament.
Overkill.
Armor and armament.
Okay.
One thing that I think the kids also like is why don't we come in with the kids like chains, you know?
Okay,
Because the
what's the
chains,
chains?
besides they look good when they're hanging, if they're hanging down here, he can always pick them up and whip people around with them. And especially if it's going to be overkill, his equipment's got to be overkill as well.
Oh, heck yeah.
Always
Okay, Already.
remember, he's tough, but he's not violent.
Okay, along those lines already, he's got the biggest shoulder pads ever existed. It's like
I
this,
figured he would.
this chest plate and right here. Okay, it covers each shoulder and runs across the middle of his chest. Okay, you want to place chains on it? Oh, that's cool.
You know, I wish there were a way to prove to the audience that this really is something that you guys are ad-libbing right now, but you have to take my word
Believe
for
me,
it
we're ad-libbing it.
as a Marvel bullpenner that we've never done this before. We just decided to do this. We were in the studio, the guys were here, we said we have about a half hour to kill, let's have some fun. This is the first time they've heard the name Overkill, and they're just doing great. This character is really coming forth. I love that masthead.
And since your last video didn't go too good, you wanted to call it over-edit, but we're going to call it Overkill. And as a matter of fact, what we could do here is I'd probably make this a blood red right in here for the Overkill. We could even do something if we wanted. I don't have the time and the technology. We could have done something in eyesight in here. We could have had a reflection of maybe somebody with their eyes wide open or something like that. He's going to do the character here, and while he's doing that, I think what we'll do is, just to make him cool for a poster, we'll put some gunshot wounds back into the wall here.
Sounds good.
Terrific.
Okay, what do you
All right.
think? Should he have hair or should he be bald? I'm
Make
thinking
him bald.
I'm
He can
thinking
be
bald.
pretty tough-looking bald, can't he?
Yeah.
Oh, I think so.
Yep.
I think
I keep
definite
telling that
sign-
to myself as I keep losing my hair.
Definite sign of baldness.
And we
Now, tell me what you think of his personality. I mean, because the way you draw him will obviously express his personality. How do you see a guy who looks like that and who's called Overkill?
Tough as nails.
He's tough. The guys that always scared me aren't the guys that really are psychotic killers, but the guys that are actually completely in control of what they do. Those are the guys, like the Jokers compared to, let's say, the Kingpin. The Kingpin kind of scares me more because he actually knows every single thing he's doing. So I'd like to see this guy right here with all the armor and stuff be a quiet guy, but know exactly what he's doing and have a reason for doing
Sort
it.
of my type. quiet but incredibly menacing all the time. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you what I've done
Glad you
here.
mentioned the Kingpin, one of our favorite Marvel characters.
Okay, I'll tell you what I've done here. This, I've given him, building off your
You've
your
taken
gun
that?
sight, and put
Great.
it right over his eye, right
Great.
here, and kind of a broader nose. Again, the grimace on the face. I'm giving him a layer of like chainmail or armor down his neck, highlighting it right now.
Have you
And
noticed
Todd's
tough
gonna
guys
take-
very rarely have narrow noses?
This is true. The nose has been broken several times. Okay.
Now, how would you say his personality, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I'm just trying to put you on the spot. How would you say that his personality would be different from most of our other tough guys, like Wolverine and all of the others? And Cable.
See, as he pointed out, Wolverine's more of a psychotic. I like the idea that he's more in control, knows what he's doing, knows how to achieve it fast and quick.
So he's a little bit out of control?
Well, see, the one
But you had wanted him more in
No,
control.
he is control.
Oh,
he
he's
is
more in control.
See,
Yeah,
one of the things you'll find too, Stan, I mean, you're the writer, bud, is that
Good.
as the time goes on, the characters start to take a kind of a venue of their own. So maybe today, yeah, we say, well, he's going to be this and this and that, but we find that as we get into issue 6 or issue 7, he's leading us into this direction, and maybe we're going to change him, maybe we're going to add this to him. And you know how that goes. All of a sudden, it's like, by issue 12, he's not what we started. The
Yeah.
costume might be the same, but he himself personally, and I think that's part of the fun that the
You're
kids go for
absolutely
the
right.
ride with us, is that they can sit there and they can go, yeah, okay, well, we're going to go with the ride with Rob, we're going to go with the ride with Todd, because they look cool, but it's up to you, Stan.
Okay, I think along the lines of the name Overkill, I think he should be along somehow like he's half man, half machine. He's fighting that inside. He's partly a cyborg. He's a combination of technology and brutality.
All right.
Ooh.
You know
We're
something?
getting a character.
We probably couldn't do this if you weren't right-handed and you weren't left-handed. There'd
Hey,
be no way to work
it
it out
worked
so
out,
the
it
camera
worked
could catch it.
Okay, I've given him these spikes on the side of his armor that are off to the side, so nobody can get near this guy.
Great. I just thought of something fantastic. You know what we're going to do
What's
when
that?
we're finished?
What are we gonna do?
Both of you guys are going to sign this, and we're going to donate it to a charity auction.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Because I mean, this
we're
is
gonna,
really one of a kind.
and we're
isn't
going to put it out on the movie, and like the Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtles, and then we'll fight over it in,
Oh,
in
heck
5
yeah.
years from now.
And then we'll never
We'll be in
talk.
court.
That's
We'll be in the
right.
tabloids.
Yeah, it's the last thing we need is a lawsuit.
Oh, there's no need to fight over it. It's obviously my creation, but you fellas were a great help, and I'm sure that I'll see that you get some sort of credit.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna give him some big knee pads here, because a guy like him that's got some armor and has got some guns and
Has to
stuff
have
like
knee
that
pads.
is gonna go down. He's gonna go in any position that he's gonna want to go to. So if he's got some protection on his knees, he's gonna basically be like a gauntlet. He can throw himself all over the place and not really be injured too much.
I know an 11-year-old kid who's a roller skater who has the same
Same
thing.
attitude, yeah, that's right.
But so far, you do it great.
Define this up right here. So
Boy, he looks grim, doesn't he?
Kids, I mean, the kids like the dark, moody stuff. I mean,
they seem
you know,
to,
I
yeah.
mean, years ago was something else. They liked the nice, clean costume stuff. But today, the more armor, the more belts and buckles and straps and whatever that, basically glorified bikers. I mean,
You mean the kind of noble Stan Lee clean-cut type is getting passé? That's
Yes.
a shocking thought.
yeah, passe. I wouldn't say that. It's becoming boring to them.
All right, I think you've done enough. Hey, I'm glad you're doing a little something here, because somehow you just doing some rough lettering. I don't know, poor old
Rob's getting
Rob
it.
over there.
what are you doing
he-
there? What are you doing there?
Right
Talk to
here?
me, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna do is I want to give him some leather straps underneath. We'll make this armor right in here.
Okay.
But if I give him some leather straps up underneath it, so he's also got some leather down up behind him, so even his arms. Because see, the thing is, if we overload him or overkill him, Stan, good one. When he's working out, we'll make him sweat, and the kids will love it. He's working hard. He's not too
The
perfect.
perspiration just gives him that much
Oh,
more
yeah,
ruggedness.
yeah.
But I have a question I've been wanting to ask you guys. How long does it take these people to get dressed, these kind of characters?
Who says
that you
they
draw?
undress?
I mean, there's something they have to get out quickly to save the world, but it takes them an hour and a half to get into all of this stuff
That's
if they
right.
work fast.
That's right, but see, this is getting into the costume is like going to the bathroom in comic book. You never show it, but you assume that Superman and Batman and Spider-Man actually do go and urinate every now and then,
You're
right?
right, but you never do show it, do you?
No.
But you do show, very often you show people getting dressed, especially women. I seem to recall that now.
Yeah,
and then.
no, well, that's okay, because we got to show, they show that. I mean, how many things in the movie you see when they're drawing, or that somebody's talking to a lady and she's always getting changed for the job? I'm going.
Didn't I ever have
Okay.
Spider-Man go to the bathroom, come to think of it? I wonder. I've got to go reread
You gonna block
100
that
and
in?
some
You gonna block that
issues.
in?
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna put.
What's that little line over here?
This would be the back of his, because we're going to make it almost like wings. So to go, here's the shoulder blades, and then they come back. If we did
Does
a
he
back
fly?
view, I don't think he needs to fly.
do you think?
He's too heavy to fly. But
No, he doesn't
Does Rob
fly.
think he flies?
He's a tank. I see him as a human tank.
and if he's going to
Walks-
fly, we would
If
have
there's
called
something
him.
in his way, he'll just walk around.
And if he's going to fly, we'll call him
excuse me,
Boeing.
walk through it.
You guys sure are tickling this. I think it's great. All right, now listen, we have about 10 more minutes, so you have a lot of time to draw the rest
Oh,
of them.
okay. We can overkill this guy.
Yeah, we're gonna.
I think we're doing it too. Anyway, it's a lot easier for
Maybe
me.
we can make Overkill Junior over
You're
here.
right there.
This is the easiest assignment I've ever had. You're doing all the work, and I just have to nod and say that's pretty cool and take the credit for it at the end. And we should do more shows like this.
Yeah,
That's
we
it.
should, huh?
And since let me see, he's
I
got-
don't mind
we'll
you,
make his. We'll make. See, he's got his hand here. Yeah, because we got to be holding something. So he'll be
Buddy.
holding-
What? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's his side.
Oh no, you go.
I mean,
Okay,
you
go
got a
ahead.
hand over
You're
here.
right.
You're a
right.
son of a gun. He's done a nice, complete hand. You don't want to play with
I'm
the
going to
rough
work
hand.
on this
That's too
hand right
hard,
here.
huh?
No way, I'm working on
You
this
draw
hand.
hands? Are you into hands?
Oh
really?
yeah, I'm the best.
You do hands?
I'm the
Actually, what do
best.
you think about his chest up here? I was thinking, like, maybe a
Knowing
career,
you,
know?
you're going to put a lot of hair on it.
No, he's
No.
covered.
Or he's all
He's
covered up,
covered.
is he?
He's covered. I'm gonna put some more gadgets here, like some blasters or some. I don't know.
He shoots through his chest?
Oh heck yeah! You can't get close. Boom.
Every part
His whole
of him
body's
is lethal,
overkill.
huh? All right.
Yeah. Big gun.
We'll give him. How about if we give him? The kids all select. Now I don't know how these guys run, but why don't we give them here? Wires coming out here, coming
Oh,
down. Up.
they
the
love
kids,
that
the kids
stuff.
love wires.
The wires
yeah,
that he'll
they do.
trip
Why
over
don't
when
we-
he's
why-
running.
Oh yeah, just like the capes that they run around on.
The
They-
chains, the
Hey, okay.
cables, the wires.
I'm gonna give him wires over here, but it's gonna be on the underside of his arm because if they were on the outside, these things would cut him, and he'd be discombobulated.
Hey, you
So-
draw good wires.
Oh,
Hey, his
Years of
wires
practice.
are almost as good as
Years
your
of
webs.
practice.
How about, you want to give him a web or two?
No
Just
way.
to show how you draw
no,
webs?
No way. It's
No?
been done.
Okay.
It's been done. Let's rehash that. Let's give him some new stuff here.
Every time I think of you guys, I think webs for you and wires
shoulder
for
pads.
you.
You got it. Okay.
Now, what's happening to the knee? Are you giving him the same kind of knee
yeah,
as Todd did?
symmetry. We gotta have symmetry here, you know. If he's gonna
Okay.
give him a knee pad, we give him a knee pad. He gave him leather straps. I gave him leather straps. He's got these over here. This guy, he's got to be
And he's
designed
really
well.
going to be able to move with all of this stuff
Of course he is.
Stan, this is comic books, bud. you got to suspend, reality for him. Okay, I'm gonna give him some knuckles here that are gonna be like steel glove knuckles up in here, so that again he's all. I mean,
I don't like you saying suspend reality. I have always told myself that our comic books are really the ultimate when it comes to
what I'm doing.
reality.
okay.
They are reality-based.
Hey, I'm gonna put some wires that like tangle differently, like around his leg, kind of cool looking. Drives the point home that he's.
Now, that means you've got to
More
do the same on
cybernetic.
your leg. Can you
No, wait. Do you
draw
want the
so
symmetry
graceful
on
a
it? Do
wire?
you think we should symmetry?
Or make it
we can go with you
asymmetric.
on that one.
Huh?
We can go with
Okay,
you
I'm
on
gonna let's give him a little bit more. I don't like. We gotta have a lot of chain here. You gotta
Any chain?
usually gotta have more than one.
I put the whole chain around here.
Yep.
Okay.
Guys, do you see him as a member of a team, or do you see him as
Loner.
a loner?
Nope.
Really?
Yeah,
And where does
loner.
he live?
Where does he live? Where you live, Stan? I think
Los
he-
Angeles.
he's-
Where else would a person live?
This guy's out in Malibu. He's a beach bum.
You got it.
He
I know the
goes.
sun isn't going to do him much good in all that covering.
That's it. He
But-
gets sunstroke. He goes out and kills people.
Well, now, let me ask you another question. These things are vitally important, as you know. Does he have a double identity? Is he really a meek accountant in real life?
Who else could he be besides Overkill?
Well, I mean, when he takes off all these clothes, is he a
I
97-pound
do you see
weakling?
him taking this stuff off?
By the time he takes
Never,
it
huh?
off, then another villain's come in because it took him 12 hours to get it off. He's into the next issue. He's got
By
to
the
put it
time
back
he
on.
takes it off, he's died of old age.
I say he works at a gym, like a gold gym, because he'd be in such good shape taking all that steel stuff off and on.
That's how he got into the
good shape.
condition he's
Works for
in,
me, works-
putting his costume on and off.
Okay.
How about
It's
over
like
here?
lifting weights.
Give him like a headset or something.
Okay.
Constant contact.
Yep. On one side, see?
Yeah.
Sometimes, like a lot of people,
Yeah.
sometimes, even when they design their house and they put stuff up, they think two pictures got to be side by side. The
Yeah.
stuff that looks cool now is when you just kind of lopside things sometimes, That
I
you got
wondered why you walk that way.
yeah, well, the Igor, they call him.
Okay. Okay. On his right here, he's got 3 different cannons.
Oh, he's got a gun.
Okay. If he lifts it up, like his
Are they all the same millimeter?
if his this is a real rough fist. Okay.
Okay.
His thumb. You would have 3 different cannons
Different,
that are facing you for the large kapui. So right here, they could be like missile launchers or whatever, but he's gonna have those right over here.
What
And
makes
this
you
guy's
make those
alive,
value judgments? Why only 3? He's got 4 knuckles.
Because 3 is the only number I could fit on his hand.
Yep. Just like in cartoons, 3 fingers always work
Have you
better
noticed
than
that?
4.
Have you noticed Calvin and Hobbes, that they only have 3 fingers?
Yep.
Oh, you did notice it?
No, seriously,
I've
yeah.
won bar bets with that. Nobody has ever noticed it.
Okay, look at check
I'll
it.
never ask you anything again.
Someday
You
learn
you
your
think we're
lesson,
giving
Stan,
people
someday.
the wrong impression that they think it's always this much fun working on new characters?
Oh, I think it's always.
They don't know about the trouble and the toil and the turmoil that goes into this.
Okay, but we're
What
gonna
is
get-
that? Is he smoking?
Oh, the smoke is billowing out of it. We're gonna get a good licensing deal on this character.
Yeah,
right?
we are.
We're going to make millions for some charity
Okay.
with this drawing.
Okay.
But it's not the drawing, it's your lettering card. I mean, this lettering is absolutely
That's right, that's
superb.
logo.
I love the way you did this.
I'm going to give him a fan on this leg here. Do
I
a
wonder if
little
I
bit
should have copyrighted this name before I gave it to you.
I don't know.
As soon as we finish, we'll all run to our lawyers quickly.
My people's already on it. Or my perp.
Have
yeah.
your people call my
Yeah,
people.
Okay. Soon. Okay, so there's the smoke. What are you gonna do for his legs? What do you want to do for his legs? Legs are important.
Yeah.
No more straps.
Should he wear some more ornament on his legs?
Yeah, I
Some
think so.
holsters or
I think
something?
so.
Why don't we put rivets on him? Small rivets running up his body here.
Won't he look like a robot or something?
That's what he looks like. I
What
think
kind of rivets?
small, tiny
kind of
rivets.
human there.
Small, tiny rivets.
Okay.
Like, let's say you've
Do you
given us
know
a
of
line
any
right
small,
here.
big rivets?
Now that I think of it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the rivets live next door to me. John Rivet, he's a little thing.
See why I love this man? I really don't know.
A wit beyond.
Okay, I'll give him the rivet, kid. You gotta give the shadow on the downside, right there. Ah, perfect.
Okay. Rivet. Rivet.
Your rivets seem to be a little larger
Rivet.
than Todd's rivets.
No, not enough.
Okay, finish it
No,
up.
no, I mean...
No, that's okay.
Listen, I
Bigger's
gotta
better.
look like an editor, don't
Hey,
I?
hey, why don't we give him like a couple more over here too? Like give him multiple rivets.
Yeah, 2.
But only on the side of the leg,
Yep.
on each side.
Okay.
You'll drive the readers
And then
crazy.
this-
Why does he have more on that side than that side?
No. I'm saying on each side of this leg. So he's riveted.
Now,
I think
just
the
for
rivets should go up here.
For the sake of our unseen viewers, is this really the type of thought process that you guys go through when you
Yes.
create characters?
Except for we have more than 20 minutes.
We're usually probably longer than you usually
We
do.
do. Yeah, no, I would say the most of the time we go home, we know that we got an issue coming up, so if we're working on like issue 10, we're thinking about the guy we're going to create in issue 14. I mean, that's how I do it. So that way, when we come down to it, it's not like, I got an issue, we got to get it out, we got to create it, we got to come up with the character right off the bat.
Well, I think I've got to say seriously, which isn't easy for me to do, but I think it's very impressive that in a matter of 20 minutes, you guys could come up with something like this. I mean, bad as it is, it's still impressive that you were able to do it this quickly.
Well, the name that you gave us was pretty lame. So we
Thanks,
did the
Abe.
best that we could do, but
All right, since you don't like it, remember, it's in my copyright.
okay.
No way.
Thanks a lot, pal.
I get all
Well,
rights
look at
to
this.
the
Hey, we got to put the gun marks. I didn't do
lunch
this.
pails and the
is perfect.
stationery and
Better
the
already.
action figures. Yeah, that's a cool logo. That's
Rob,
really
didn't you
cool.
promise that you would draw and we would do the talking? And when you
sorry, I'm
grow
sorry.
up a little more, you know, we'll
Okay,
let you in
all
there
right,
with the
yeah.
grown-ups.
Well, my 12th birthday is coming up, guys.
Well, when you were creating characters, Stan, what was the process back then? I mean, because Rob and I right now, we do our own writing and our own drawing. We don't collaborate with anybody anymore. So
That's the problem, and I've been meaning to talk to you guys about that. No, what I would do is just, as we did just now, I would dream up a name, but then I would write a synopsis of who the character was, what his or her powers were, and where they lived, what they did, what the personality was, and then I would call whatever artist was going to work on it, and I would give it to him and give him a rough idea of a plot and say, go, turn him loose. And I always got something back from the artist that wasn't quite what I expected. It was usually better than I expected. And then I'd write the copy, and we were off and running. I loved working that way. See, with you guys, I didn't do it that way. I didn't tell you what I wanted. I just said, call them overkill.
Challenge
tough.
this.
And I must say, you have more than lived up to the challenge. Boy, he is one grim-looking guy. There's no way this man can move.
that's how you beat him.
he's a statue.
That's all you do. You run behind him, you push him over, and he falls over, and he can't get up. He's too heavy.
What would you say he weighs?
Couple 100,000.
He's got to have a power to defy gravity, I would say, just looking at
He's
him.
a tank. I mean, what do you think? I think he's like a human tank. He looks like a human tank.
Now, the funniest thing would be if you say that these are jets and he's the fastest man alive.
There you go.
Now, he's got to be some sort of a rampaging, savage type of guy, and his name is Overkill. And maybe a lot of the things that he's wearing on him are to restrain him, to slow him down, and to stop him when he goes on a rampage. Huh?
You've done this before.
Wow, that's good.
I swear,
That's
it
a
just
good idea.
occurred to me.
That's good.
Because with a name like that and the way you have him, we've got to justify all of this paraphernalia somehow.
Okay, Stan. shoot.
And we're always afraid if ever he can kind of break loose from those chains and that other stuff.
Okay,
then
okay,
watch
You want to
out.
get a plot together, Stan? Rob and I put in a good word for you up at the office. If
Oh,
you
hey,
want.
would you?
Yeah, we would.
I want to tell you, I
you know
would
a
love
couple
one
editors.
day to write some stuff that you guys draw, but of course you have to do it exactly the way I tell you. You have to be very subservient, very docile. My name comes first, is much
Oh,
larger.
you haven't talked to people
the
about
usual.
this. You haven't talked to
Am I in for a little
Cocky
surprise?
1 and Cocky 2. Oh, yeah. We just, no way.
Well, then you'll get along well with me because I'm meek, modest, and humble. So I think
As we
we'll do
found
just
out today.
fine, as you know. Now, I think we're reaching. No, we have a few more minutes, and
Okay.
I think if we can just finish that, his
Okay.
left leg.
Well, now check this out.
Okay.
He's
What
got
do you think of the left
chainmail
leg there?
covering all the body.
Perfect.
Then he's slammed this armor over them.
Okay.
You want to leave this exposed because then that gives like an element
You
of
wanna do some,
vulnerability.
chest
So like the
hair there,
hero
is that what you
can
want?
at least stab him right here. Right here. That's the only place they can hurt him.
Yep.
You want to? Here?
Like it. We love it.
Hey, can I just have that for a minute so
You
I
got
can
it.
say I had a hand
Yeah.
in this? I think
Do
a
the,
couple
do the
more.
hair, Stan.
His hair.
There, huh?
Quick, go quick. Don't think about
There you
it.
go. There you go. All right, now
we only got a
everybody
little
in the
time.
world who's watching knows that the three of us have drawn this character. It's very
right.
obvious, and I have it on tape and on record and so forth. I don't know that you're really doing my character right. It's all right, I guess, for a bunch of beginners.
That's it. Either that or we could have made him look like the Pillsbury Doughboy. That was our second choice.
I
A
got
little fat guy with lumps all over. It looks like a little, 6-month-old kid.
Oh my gosh, nobody's messing with this guy.
You know what, Rob?
What?
Now, we can just sit there and go over some of the things that he wants, but I think he's perfect right
I
now.
think he's right.
We keep doing it, and we will
I
overkill him.
just want you to, we have a minute
Oh,
and a
with
half
the
or so.
foot.
I want to tighten those feet.
Okay.
All right, guys?
Okay, give him an ankle bone here, an ankle bone here. Come up here. Cut this one out. Oh, the pin's
I
on.
like the leather straps. That's a good idea.
Do you know something? This is so incredibly unique that we could auction this off to charities to determine which charity will get it to auction it off. I think everyone will fight for this.
Here, I'm going to add some Todd bullet holes in the wall.
Okay.
You know what I think I'll do? I think I'll keep the original myself and we'll give a Xerox copy.
You know,
to someone at the auction.
There you go. You keep it there. And you know what we'll do? We even left enough room. Even though people don't like to put the big signature, we got enough room for Stan, Todd, and Rob right there.
Oh, that's sensational.
All three of us, bang, it's in and it's out. We got
Okay, I think he's done.
Robbie?
Hey,
You can be
that's
the
just
first
great.
to sign it, bud.
Now,
Oh, no,
I-
Stan goes first. Stan goes first.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll sign it on this side because really the name was mine. I don't want to take more credit than I should. Of course, I did do a few of those chest hairs,
did,
which
you, and
are
they
the
were
first
rather-
things that catch
they
the
were very
eye
good.
because
Very
they
good
have a
scene.
certain personality.
Very good scene.
Let's see, now being left-handed, I write this way, so I'll go this way.
Stan
Here, we got it.
Lee.
Oh, wait, I forgot.
You're 91? Stan, you don't look a day over 89, bud.
You silly person.
Okay, actually, here, you want to sign this over here, Todd?
There we go. Now, that's my part of it.
Excellent, Stanley.
You know, it took me years to learn to spell that.
Okay.
I think it takes you longer to sign your name
Heck
than draw
yeah.
a picture. You know?
It is.
That
Yeah,
is
look at
some
this.
signature.
Oh, you run out of room? Holy.
And
Oh,
look at
uh-oh.
this.
I'm going to put a banner around mine.
What? Look at this. We got the... Dun-dun-dun-dun.
And we finished right on time, and I've got to tell you one thing. I think that everybody watching now knows why we call this series A Visit with the Comic Book Greats. You guys are terrific. Thanks a million.
Thanks, Stan.
Oh, it was really great. I hate giving this away, but I think it'll do a lot of good. And maybe we'll do a future tape sometime where we show people who got it, what was paid for it,
No, it's
and
your
we'll do a
job.
few others.
It's your job to peddle this as a movie now.
All right.
That's right.
All right. Well, that's the idea. That's the idea. So we give this to a charity, but I use it to sell a movie on the basis of it, okay?
Okay.
And if you guys play your cards right, you'll get a free ticket.
Okay. Thanks, Stan.
Okay. Good night to both of you, and thanks a lot. Hey, that's really sensational. I mean, what a job you guys did. Let me tell you, I couldn't get a good look. I'm looking upside down. That's fantastic. Yep.
I'm going to step out, okay?
Incidentally, you guys have ruined us. We've decided to give up comics and we're going into showbiz.
Boys?